Hey y'all, it's Emily here coming at you from Pueblo, Colorado at 9:13 a.m. on this beautiful St. Patrick's morning. Yep, it's right, 3:17 everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't forget to wear your green. For today's podcast, I want to talk about procrastination. Now, have you ever met one of those procrastinators that's just like a lifelong procrastinator? You just know that there's absolutely no hope for them. They have no drive, no thrill, no excitement about any of the tasks that they're working on, even if it benefits themselves. You know, those ones. Come on, guys. Everybody has one at least. Well, I grew up with these procrastinators, so I know them very well. It doesn't take me very long working with somebody to tell you if they're going to be this lifelong procrastinator. So let me start by telling you about my uncle. God rest his soul, he did pass away, and I love him to death. But this man was a millionaire, and he always had a business idea, and he was always discussing these business ideas. And basically, every business that he had, he kept not following through. So his basement, which was a huge basement, kept filling up with products from the different companies he wanted to start and never completed. So he would end up with a bunch of computers, and he would end up with a bunch of drinks and all kinds of different things. He did do a shop in Iowa once with his ex-wife. She was a bride from Russia, so of course as soon as she was able to get her green card, she ran away because he was very difficult, very stubborn. The guy was like, don't touch the wall, put the mayonnaise on the right shelf kind of guy. But he always had this talk, and you would believe him with all your heart. Like, even if you knew him, you would get excited about what he was saying. He would talk to you about projects. You would bounce ideas off of each other. You would be prepared to start this project, and then boom, he'd come at you and totally forget what you said, or totally be unprepared, or completely change his mind. This is the kind of guy where he had a beautiful space rented in Bennett, Colorado. And I don't know if anybody's aware of what Bennett, Colorado is, but it is a very small town. They have finally been building it up. So they had finally built a King Soopers and started preparing it to be a little bit more economical and have more of like a real town. And it's getting a little bit bigger, but it's still one of those middle of nowhere in the country. Takes you about 3 hours drive to get there. So he has this shop on the corner, and it's pretty big. It's attached to a car mechanic shop that he also wanted. And he wanted to use the office for something because he had actually rented it for the car mechanic side. And he has these computers that he doesn't use, and he has these snack drinks that he doesn't use, and he has an inventory and a vendor for like packaged sandwiches and stuff, because when he did his cafe in Iowa, he didn't want to have the food license. And apparently if you have prepackaged food that comes in wrappers, you do not have to have a food license to sell it. So I tell him, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's a bunch of teenagers and kids here in this area because, you know, their parents and stuff. And the library closes at about 6 p.m. And then there's nowhere for these kids to hang out. And I'm like, you should make an internet cafe. You could charge people for the internet if you want, or you could give it for free and just sell your snacks. And it was a brilliant idea. I found a way for him to use all of his inventory that he had already wasted money on. And you know what he said? I don't want kids. And he doesn't care about the target market. In fact, his favorite idea was to do a car parts store, and there were 4 of them in this tiny town where there's really literally nothing. There's 1 liquor store, let's put it that way. 1 grocery store and 3 or 4 mechanic shops. And they have their own equipment. So anyways, it wasn't even because it was a bad idea. And I mean, he was very good at making it to where he was doing his own ideas, I want to say, as if he were the customer instead of the business owner. Like, you could be in a Hispanic area and you could be making a restaurant, and there could be no restaurant at all. And you could say, hey, you should be doing a Hispanic restaurant with food. And he would say, I don't want Hispanic food because I don't like it. And do Italian or something, which they would probably still appreciate, but the point is the point. The reason I bring up procrastination is because in the internships that I'm having right now, a good majority of these people have no intention of actually making their businesses thrive or successful. And I'm honestly not sure of where they get their money from to survive on. But I don't even know. I'm like so confungled about it. Let's call it that. Confungled. There's a word for your day. Word of the day, confungled. I'm so confused as to why these people would not want you if you have a successful business mind. So remind you guys, me, business brain. I have my business administration degree. I'm like 4 months away from getting my bachelor's degree. I have experience from owning my own companies, and every company I've ever had has been large and successful. So I know what it takes. Why would you have an intern who's willing to work with you, who has all these skills? I'm not some low-level intern. No offense to any interns who are, but there are people with experience, and there are people without it. That's not a big problem, but I am offering to do internships because I want references on my resume that aren't just me and my friends or my family, because I've always owned my own company. So if you have this overly skilled, extremely proficient person in marketing and social media and all this, why would you not want to use them? And believe me, I have been fast tracking this one guy. I want to do it so quickly, and so he has a good idea. He has a good market. He has like a good plan, but he wants you to slow down and not do it. They want to dumb it down. They want to back up. They want to slow it down because they're not actually ready to do this business in any way whatsoever. You can tell. They're not prepared for it, probably because they have busy lives doing whatever business or job they have outside of this, that it's like a little side project, like a hobby, that they'll keep talking about until they're old and never actually do. And I am concerned with the fact that Handshake lets these people ask for interns online. I'm not sure if you can sign up for Handshake as like a standard person. I should probably try just to see. But they're not the only ones that have this problem. There are some companies that are like an Etsy shop, and it's not even up and running well. They're very stubborn, and they don't want to do things any differently. They can't invest money to make it better. They're just stuck in this moment in time that they're never ever going to get out of, but you can't say that to them because it's rude. And in all honesty, if our society allowed us to say things like that without getting reprimanded or being labeled as rude, and I mean, you could say it in the sweetest way, but these people would be more successful then. Less businesses would fail. So let's say what procrastination is. Procrastination is the act of putting off or delaying a task, even when you know it could have a negative consequence. It's a common behavior that can affect everyday tasks like chores, appointments, and assignments. So, the reason that this is good is because, of course, we know procrastination. A lot of our teachers in school, especially in college, want you to talk about how you can prevent procrastinating. So we know with homework assignments and things like that, you can procrastinate. We know that sometimes when you are doing something, maybe you're sitting down at the computer and you're preparing to type your paper, and then you're thirsty. So you go ahead and you get up to get a drink, which you weren't planning on like taking very long. But when you get over to where the drink cups are, you realize that you don't have a clean one. So you go over to the sink. Then you do all the dishes because you don't have a clean cup, and why the heck not if you don't need, like your cups are on the bottom or something. So you do all the dishes. And then let's say you got water on the floor, so you go grab the mop to come mop it. And then while you're getting the mop, you see that the laundry is like wet on the floor or something. I don't know, it leaked. It's one of those Swiffer mops. So you put the laundry in the wash machine and you start it. Then you go back to mopping. Then you go back to making your drink cup. And then you sit back down to do your paper. That's if you make it back to your paper. Let's be honest. Procrastination has a lot of problems where you don't actually end up coming back to what you were going to do. Maybe the kids come home from school, or the dog starts acting up, or whatever, and you don't actually sit down after you've done all that procrastinating. Oops, you only had enough time to do those dishes and mop the floor and start that laundry. But these are all examples of procrastination. Now, I know that there's some information about Ellen DeGeneres and how she was being like a, to her people. But anyway, she has some really funny books, and one of her books talks about procrastination. It's really funny. In case anyone wants to check it out. So the causes of procrastination: low self-confidence, anxiety, lack of structure, inability to motivate yourself, rumination or fixing on negative thoughts, cognitive bias that tasks will be easier in the future. That's what most of these people are doing to me. Emotional discomfort associated with the task. So let's see. I do believe a lot of these people have low self-confidence. They don't believe in the big dream, the big picture, your big picture. Like Doom says, your big picture, how are you going to get there? SMART goals, how are you going to get there? They don't believe in themselves to actually have the end game, or maybe they're afraid when they reach it, it'll fail. Maybe having that dream makes them feel good and it gives them something to look forward to, and it's the only thing, so they keep it on the back burner as long as possible. I don't know. But low self-confidence seems to be a really big issue. Anxiety, I haven't seen as much, except for if you're like stressing out and having anxiety attacks and you're not focusing on what you're doing. That I could see. Lack of structure is a very big issue. I will tell you that most of the internships that I have do not watch me. They give me tasks or tell me things to do, and they are like, go, bye, butterfly. Some ask to meet you once a week, some don't. Some ask to chat with you in the middle of the day with an email, some don't. There are a few where I've had to step up and be like, hey guys, what are we doing here? I want to help these people. I'm actually doing the opposite type of internship here, where I'm doing all the work and the training and the teaching, and they're sitting back and being like the student. You are supposed to have a mentor in an internship. If you guys go back and check out that podcast that I made, you'll see what I'm talking about. But anyways, lack of structure. A lot of these people don't have any idea what they're going to do. They have no idea where to start, how to organize, what they want from the end. Inability to motivate yourself, that can be a big problem. That's where depression comes in. That's where, like, I'm not good enough and stuff like that, which comes with this negative one. Rumination or fixating on negative thoughts. Those go hand in hand, really. I'll never do it. I'll never succeed. I'm a failure. What if I succeed and I fail? These are negative thoughts. They say that whatever you believe in your brain, like in your mind, that your brain will make it happen. If you are negative all the time and you are saying bad things, your brain will subconsciously make it happen. The same goes for if you believe in yourself and think you'll be successful, the brain will make it happen. To be honest with you, I read somewhere that somewhere official, don't worry, all my reading, when I say that, if you guys ever hear me say I read somewhere, it means it was legitimate, but it's been a while. I read somewhere that even when you're late to work, you've driven that route so many times that your brain knows every single light and how long it takes you to get there, even if you don't remember. And when you are panicking and you're in a rush, you will actually subconsciously make yourself late. And all of a sudden, that's why you hit every red light and everything seems annoying. That goes with negative self-talk and negative thoughts. Cognitive bias that tasks will be easier in the future. This I have seen some people do. Probably this internship that I'm talking to you about, where I feel like they don't have any motivation and that they don't really want to succeed. They keep believing that in the future, instead of realizing you have to take steps to make it to the future. Now, guys, I know this podcast is on procrastination, but when you are thinking about the future, even when you're doing a SMART goal, remember, SMART goals, okay? You have to remember that they have to be measurable. They have to be attainable. They have to be, what is it? What's the R? Let me think. It's a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So when you're setting a goal, it should be SMART. Now, when it says specific, I want to get my business up and running in 3 months. Measurable, 3 months. Achievable, does that sound achievable? Yes, probably so. Relevant? Yeah, I want to start my company. And time-bound, 3 months again. But and I'll probably do a podcast on SMART goals, but what this has to do with is, and I always talk about it as like plan A to Z. If you fail once, there's still 25 letters in the alphabet. So Z is your end goal. Z is this future that they're talking about with your cognitive bias. You can't get to Z without going through A to Y. You need to know what steps get you there. You need to have a plan, and you need to be acting on those plans, not just preparing. Today, I need to register my business. Tomorrow, I need to get my EIN. The next day, I want to write a business plan. That's going to take a week. Okay, let's do that. Now I want to go apply for a loan. Have the steps, do the steps, and then you're less likely to procrastinate. And guys, I'm going to tell you from right now, I'm getting some ideas for podcasts. So watch out for those. I'm going to do one on how to start a business. I'll probably do it right after this one, and one about SMART goals. So emotional discomfort associated with a task. So this can be various things. Usually it has to do with something that you are doing and you've had a bad experience with it. So you try not to do it again. Or maybe you don't like doing it, like when you need to do the dishes and you just hate the dishes. Or maybe your hands get dry and hurt after you do the dishes. So you avoid doing the dishes. That's what that is. So they have tips to overcome your procrastination. So if any of you are watching this or listening to this, to find out ways to avoid procrastination, you should identify your goals and set realistic goals. That goes back to the SMART goals. That goes back to the Z being your end goal, A through Y being your steps. Identify the goals. I read in a study that college students who wrote down their goals and looked at them regularly were 70% more likely to graduate school than those who did not. You want to include easy tasks. Break it down. Remember, if you can't do 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time. If 1 day at a time is too difficult for you, 1 hour at a time. Whatever you need to do, break it down. Make it easier tasks. If you see a task and it looks overwhelming to you, like writing an essay, when you start breaking it down into parts, little by little, you're going to encourage yourself to finish that essay. If you're like, okay, I'm writing a paragraph now, or doing the plan now. Because it's better to do something than nothing at all. And you're more likely to get it done if you think of it in small tasks than one huge thing that's overwhelming. Find your productive flow. There's a lot of things that can go into this. It could have to do with your learning styles, your environment, your time management skills, your schedule of things you have to do, where you're doing your homework or your papers or work. You got to find out what works for you. Where are you most productive? What keeps you focused? What keeps you going? Is it having a drink next to you? Are you always getting up to get a drink? So start the day with a drink. That kind of stuff. Hold yourself accountable. This is important because you need to understand that when you procrastinate, it's your own fault. We all like to pretend that it's no one's fault, or, oh, the kids were noisy, or, oh, whatever, the dishes weren't done. Whatever happened, just think about something that happened. But you need to understand that you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for keeping yourself focused. You're responsible when you procrastinate. It's your own fault. With the internship that I'm talking about, they had jumped into something and went all in, and then it failed because they didn't do any of the steps that get you there. And now they're afraid to go on with emotional discomfort associated with the task. They've learned that they'll fail, but they didn't realize it was their own fault that they failed because they didn't plan. They didn't set goals, and they didn't make sure they were realistic. So you have to make sure in everything that you do that you're holding yourself accountable, because then you can push yourself to overcome any obstacle that you have. If you hold yourself accountable, your brain will understand why it's happening, and then you, as a person and a professional, can go and stop the procrastination or limit it. Let's be fair, you might only limit your procrastination You can't help it if the dog runs out the door because your husband left it open, and now you have to go catch it because it only comes to you. Remember, there are certain procrastination tasks that you can prevent and certain ones that you can't. But hold yourself accountable. And when you do that too, in your brain, say, what happened? Why did this happen? What can I do better next time? This isn't self-blame. This is accountability. This is like being professional and critically thinking and trying to problem solve the matter, not doing this negative self-talk and no motivation and lack of confidence, okay? Just briefly, I'd like to mention that one of the main things that were procrastinated is this person that I know is trying to start a podcast, and they are planning it for like weeks and months, like it's this big reveal and like it's this big press release worthy thing that people don't do regularly. It's like, get on there, do your podcast. I'm doing mine. It's not that difficult. You don't have to prepare. They're doing it again where they're not getting the proper following, and people don't understand them and who they are yet, that their brand is not known, but they don't want to change anything to do with their brand. And as some of you may know, just if you have listened before, if you ever hear my dog start to bark or make noise, I'm going to pause it and then let them finish their nonsense and then go on and finish the podcast. I have an animal rescue and there's a bunch of German Shepherds here. So, where was I? Besides procrastination. So when you're holding yourself accountable, remember, it's not blame. Reward yourself. Don't forget that you can reward yourself for doing something and completing a task. Maybe you get a dessert that you wanted. Maybe you buy a notebook that you saw online. Make sure that the reward is something positive. Don't go, well, it doesn't really matter, but don't go and be like, ooh, vodka. Try to reward yourself with something that doesn't have negative consequences. That way, your brain imprints the positive. And then you go, hey, next time I'm going to get this reward. That's all about Freud and the brain and all that stuff. Positive rewards, reinforcement, positive reinforcement, all that stuff. Take breaks, okay? If you notice that you can only do 20 minutes before you start getting distracted, or the page you're reading starts to blur, or you had to read the paragraph 3 times, take a break. It's up to you how often you take a break. If you do 20 minutes on, 10-minute break, 20 minutes, 10-minute break. If you do an hour on, half-hour break, hour on, half-hour break, whatever you need, just take breaks. Try to eliminate distractions, but as you notice with my dogs, that's not always easy to do. But you can try to limit as much as you can. Besides the fact that this is a sound recording, I wouldn't put on the TV while I'm studying. I'm eliminating my distractions. Work with a study group if you can. Sometimes it pushes you back. Sometimes you're not focusing. You guys just talk. Make sure if you're working with a study group, it's beneficial to you. Make sure you're doing it with a group of students that share the same interests as you. Make sure that you're doing it basically together. Forgive yourself for procrastination in the past. Just like you have to forgive yourself for failure in the past, forgive yourself for mistakes in the past. All that. Remember, the past doesn't necessarily determine your future. So, procrastination has been linked to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, ADHD, and poor study habits. It can also cause physical illness or be caused by physical illness. So always make sure that you have a plan. Usually positive self-talk and having a plan can get you through some of these things. And I'll do a few podcasts about ways to alleviate like anxiety and things like that. But for the purpose of this podcast, remember, go outside, get fresh air if you're starting to get overwhelmed. Take a hot shower if you're getting overwhelmed. Eat a snack if you're getting overwhelmed. Do a breathing exercise, whatever you need to do. And then go back to your work. If it's about self-care, it's not necessarily procrastination, unless you realize a correlation between that and cognitive bias or emotional discomfort associated with the task. Don't make this a negative thing. If you realize that, oh, every time I have to get something done, I get anxiety, so then I can take a break. Your brain might train it that way to where it inadvertently is making you take breaks when you don't need them. So, there's basically 10 distinct warning signs of procrastination. So, really busy. Okay, we already been there, done that. Anxious and stressed. That's obvious too. Facing the real consequences. So, you have a deadline that's due and you waited till the last minute, and if you don't get it done in like an hour, that's it, you're going to fail. Easily distracted, delaying actions. This is what the whole podcast has been about. The people that I work with are delaying actions. They have someone willing to help them succeed. They have someone willing to make the business thrive. They could grow it in 6 months' time and be rich and famous by the end of that, but they want to delay the action. If you find yourself delaying the action, whether it's big or small, oh, I need to sit at my computer and type. Oh, the sunlight isn't good. My chair's not comfy. I need a drink. That's also delaying action. Whether it's big or small, ask yourself why. Why are you delaying actions? Do you really want the end goal? Is your end goal too difficult? Remember, measurable, attainable. Always do that. Always, always, always. And you might prevent delaying actions. Feeling guilty. Don't beat yourself up. Remember, forgive yourself for past procrastination. Don't blame yourself. Motivate yourself. Make yourself accountable, but don't be negative. It's not a punishment. You don't need to feel guilty. It's a very hard thing to combat. Guilt is very, very difficult to deal with, but you can prevent it if you tell yourself positive self-talk. I had no choice but to do the dishes. I have some time to get this assignment done, so it's okay that I took a break. I don't understand this. I can go ask my friends or my study group. Same thing. Don't feel guilty. Justifying actions. This is the opposite of holding yourself accountable. There are some justifications, like your dog barked, so you had to get up and see what it was. Your alarm went off and you forgot to turn it off, so you have to get up and go to the other room. Your husband said, honey, come help me. Can you carry this inside? Whatever the case may be. There are justifiable procrastination points and there are unjustifiable. Sometimes you're just playing on your phone. You sat down at the computer and you were preparing it, but you decided to check social media first. You were reading your book and then your mind wandered off. Don't justify these actions. You have to find a way to combat that and stay focused. Whatever it is, rewarding yourself, taking breaks, positive self-talk, finding a productive flow, whatever out of the things we've talked about so far, or if there's something we didn't. Just try your best and don't justify your negative actions. Making excuses, this is another thing. Oh, I couldn't help it. My phone kept going off. Did you need to talk to that person right now, or could it have waited? Like when you're in class and they know you're in class and you're sitting in a lecture and they call and call and call. Obviously, if it's an emergency, you answer. But if it's someone just wanting to chat, you ignore them. You put it on silent until you're done with what you're doing, and then you go back and do it. Don't make excuses. There's not always an excuse. Avoiding and that, ladies and gentlemen, and apologies to everyone else. Thank you for listening. That is what I have on procrastination. I hope that you enjoyed this meeting and this session, and please look out for my next podcasts. I will be doing the ones that I promised earlier in the podcast, and others. Check it out. I'm on all the platforms except for Apple because for some reason they reject the format. But check it out. Remember, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Insta. I always forget Twitter's X now. X. LinkedIn, I'm everywhere. Forget about it. I've been watching that show, but it's just funny. So I am on Facebook, and I have groups. So there might be a group that you want to, join. I have various groups, but the best thing to do is probably to find one of my groups, and then you can add me as a friend. I do pop up, but let's see what my URL is. It's facebook.com/petmom89, PETMOM89. You can go ahead and add me as a friend. If it doesn't let you, you can follow me. You can send me a message on there, because I do have all of my groups listed. Friends are the only ones who can see it, but every group I participate in and manage, from Jeep lovers to car enthusiasts to what the heck is that, grief and loss, health foods, spiritual retreat, empowering your mind, laughing, whatever it is, I have them all listed. To be fair, I have like 40 groups that I am the administrator of, and they're all awesome. So you can also email me if you want me to find you on Facebook or give you a list of the groups, and you can choose from the links. That's easy too. thescoop@writeme.com. thescoop@writeme.com. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you, and have a happy St. Patrick's Day.